So this discussion is going to be about menu costs, which happens quite often when you have hyperinflation. As you see from the definition, this menu costs are associated with it changing a listed price in the store or on an online website with an online marketplace. And when you have to frequently change them because you have hyperinflation or even creeping inflation, this in itself is an extra cost that is placed on the business owner because of inflation itself. So to kind of be able to apply your understanding of this idea of menu costs, I've got a list of countries here, their inflation rate in 2000, and then the average inflation rate from a 7-year period. So you can see Japan's kind of the oddball here. They are actually experiencing deflation, and their average deflation rate is a little gets actually a little bit better. Zimbabwe's a mess at the beginning and even worse at the end by far. Brazil, fairly consistent. China, a little bit. France, very consistent. Some inflation in Indonesia. And Turkey actually experiences some what we call disinflation over time, which means the inflation rate has lowered. So if you look at this first question, I suggest you then pause it after you look at it. I'll read it to you. Try to figure out the answers, and then I'll tell you the answer. So it says, given the expected relationship between average inflation and menu costs, rank the countries in descending order of menu costs using average inflation over the period 2000 to 2007. So go ahead and pause it and try to do that. Okay, if you're done pausing it, or if you're done trying to answer this, you're ranking the countries in descending order of menu costs. The country that's going to have to make the most changes in menu costs is going to be Zimbabwe. Okay, I mean, if they have 904% inflation as an average rate, they're changing prices potentially hour to hour. Turkey also, despite the fact that they went down significantly, is going to be number 2. Indonesia would be 3. China would be 4. And Japan 5. Brazil 6. And France 7, with the least number of changes to menus. So now we'll go on to the next question that has to do with menu costs. It says, rank the countries in order of inflation rates, the most favored borrowers with 7-year loans that were taken out in the year 2000. If you remember, we talked about who's helped and who's hurt by inflation. The people who borrow money are actually helped by inflation because they're paying back the same number of dollars or yen or euros or whatever, but each dollar is worth less. So anyway, it says assume the expected inflation rate was the inflation rate in 2000. So if you went in and got a loan in the year 2000 in all these countries, you would assume that, okay, I'm going to have about 7.1% inflation if I'm Brazilian. So the question here is rank the countries in order of inflation rates and most favored borrowers with 7-year loans that were taken out in 2000. So go ahead and pause it, make your rankings, and when you're done, you can come back, I'll give you the answer. Okay, hopefully you've ranked them by now. If we're looking at these in terms of who's going to be most happy with the loan, again, due to their really terrible inflation rate, Zimbabwe, or a borrower in Zimbabwe would be ranked number 1. And actually, the next one would be Indonesia because they're paying back in I can't remember the name of their currency, but it's worth less over time. The next one after that would be China because it goes up by 0.7%, so there's a little erosion in the value of the Chinese yuan. The next one after that would be would be Japan here because they're actually paying more money every year, but just they're paying, excuse me, let me rephrase that. They're paying back yen that are worth more every year. But by the end of this 7-year period, they're actually paying back yen that aren't worth as much as they used to be worth. It's a very confusing concept, but Japanese citizens actually come out ahead by borrowing in this time period. The next would be Brazil, not much inflation, so just a little erosion in the value of the money they're paying back. Next would be France, and then last place, the poor Turks. The downside to getting rid of this really high inflation rate from the year 2000 is that they're paying back dollars that are about paying back their twice as they were when they got the loan out, and that's pretty painful for borrowers. Not that we suggest that Turkey should continue to have high inflation, because the other costs of that are greater. So the final part of this is just focus on Japan, and I kind of touched on this, but go ahead and take a minute and think about this. The borrowers who took out 7-year loans in Japan gain or lose overall versus lenders, and then explain. So go ahead and pause it. Take a moment, think about the situation, and explain. Okay, hopefully you are done writing down your answers and not just plowing through to wait for me to give you the answers. If the yen is actually going up in value every year in 2000 by 0.7%, so prices, in other words, are dropping by 0.7%, the fact that prices are dropping less and the yen is still gaining value, but not as much as it used to gain value, means the Japanese are actually better off to gain if they're a borrower. Okay, if they're lenders, now they're losing a little bit. They were really gaining before, when we had some serious deflationary problems in the 90s, because people were paying back yen that were constantly worth way more than they were before. They're still paying back yen that are worth more than they were before, just not as much more. So I'll see you in class. Bye-bye.